All right, guys, we are back for another Dokkan Battle video. We did get an announcement for upcoming content. There is a data download for me. I mean, remember, we all have different time zones, stuff like that. For me, the data download is going to be today on the 21st at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's usually around the typical JP data download time, right? So about 18 hours from now, roughly, is when we would get the data download. Now, let's talk about this in 1 second, but I would say, right here, I was expecting there to be EZAs tweeted at 4 a.m. my time is when they would always like show all this information. I was expecting there to be an EZA there. I don't think that this week is only going to have the Pure Saiyan Red Zone stages and the Infinite Dragon Ball History stage. I do think there will be multiple big EZAs coming, I think. Because I keep seeing people go, oh, it's going to be the ROF Blues. And they're not. No. That's not like enough to kind of end the celebration the way Dokkan has recently been ending these celebrations, right? We look at like so many of these major celebrations. It's what they do. They just end it with major EZAs, right? 7th anniversary, they ended with the LR Super Saiyan 4s just out of nowhere, right? Last year's worldwide download celebration, Tech Gogeta and LR Janemba. 9th anniversary ended with STR Vegito, LR Bootanks, right? The GDC ended with Vegeta and Trunks, and then, TUR Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, but it is still fucking Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, right? This is just what they do. So, this is the last week of the celebration, right? There's going to be a data down. Oh, let me pull up Rick's tweet. Rick made a tweet that I need to pull up for this. Yeah, right here. Okay. So, data download is going to be, now these are the Japanese time, right? So, 22nd right there, but it'll still be technically the 21st for me, right? So, the data download is going to be tonight. That's going to be the final week of the Tanabata celebration, right? Things that are coming this week, there's going to be another set of Purunga Dragon Balls, the Infinite Dragon Ball History stage. We have the two, the Pure Saiyan Red Zone stages, and then there's also Proton Battle. Those are the 4 things that there is. On the 29th, the next data download, it's going to have the next Dokkan Fest exclusive in the next data download, right? So it looks like, probably the 1st is when I think the next Dokkan Fest banner will be dropping. Probably October 1st is when we're going to see that next Dokkan Fest. So that means, right, that next week is not the Tanabata TDC celebration anymore. This is it. So I do think, let me pull this back up, that we will see the EZA tweeted probably right before the data download. They have done this before. A notable example would be STR Vegito and Buhan were tweeted right before the data download. Right, just as an example of end of celebration major EZAs that they have actually done this before with. So I do think we'll see that, because I don't think it's just going to be, the Infinite Dragon Ball History stage, the Red Zones, the Namekian Dragon Balls, Spring of Dragon Balls, and Patan Battle for this week. They could also tweet it in 45 minutes, 5 a.m. my time. I remember an infamous time was me and Gresh were waiting for LR Jiren to be tweeted. Did we know it was Jiren at the time? I think we were expecting it to be Jiren, but we didn't know for sure. This is the 2020 Tanabata celebration, funny enough. And they did not tweet it at 4 a.m. I remember Gresh went to sleep, and then they tweeted it at 5 a.m. Jiren, and, it was the Topo Pride Troopers. Jiren was one of the few yellow coin LR characters that actually had a banner unit released alongside with him to buff him, right? So we could potentially see stuff tweeted in 45 minutes. We could see it tweeted right before the data download, or it's possible that there is just no characters. But that, to me, that doesn't seem likely, because if we move over here to, remember, we do still have this right here. Proton saw in the data, every single time Proton drops these, this is true. This ends up being true. Could be 2 LR EZAs coming. So I think, Cooler and Goku, or the two superhero characters, Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan. I think the chances that we see these, either before the data download tonight or in the data download tonight or whatever, I think the chances we see them are very good. If I had to make a bet one direction, I bet you like when that data download happens, there will be massive LREZAs actually in the data download, right? So, all right, let's just talk about the new content that's coming. So the Infinite Dragon Ball History stage, I mean, these Infinite Dragon Ball History stages at this point, I mean, these are kind of, I don't want to call them like fodder content. I don't know if that's quite an appropriate term. But these Infinite Dragon Ball History stages, I mean, they are just like very easy to destroy at this point. But I do think that there's a little bit of, like, that is not a horrible thing, right? That they drop some of these like content stages that are like pretty weak, but we have so much. Dokkan never before has spammed content like they have in 2025. That's why, like, you'll always see people crying about content, but like, again, it's just like, there wasn't even half as much content literally last year. Didn't even have half as much content as this year. Like, it's crazy how much more they constantly are raising the bar. It's surprising. That's why I've said I feel like Dokkan has increased the budget. But, like, there's, like, or they've gotten a budget increase, right, from Bandai or Shueisha or whoever, right? With, like, the GDC special battle, the Supreme Magnificent battles, the Red Zones, all these events, festival battles, all these very, very, very hard events. I think it's good that they drop stuff like some of these Infinite Dragon Ball History stages or Legendary Freeze event. These types of things to me are not a bad thing, right? Them dropping like these types of content stages, I do think is actually, kind of a good thing, right? For sure. So, all right, so there's that. And then the other thing we're going to have is 2 new Red Zone stages. Now, if we look at what Majin, Vegeta, and Kabe are looking like, it's possible that Broly is like the hardest fight in the game, or he's like harder than GDC content. Now, keep in mind, there's a very good chance, I know they've dropped so much content this year, right? There's a very good chance this is the final potential like hardest fight in the game candidate we're gonna get this year. Like if we're now like entering into kind of like the off season, the cool down period until the 11th anniversary. Like this is kind of, they dropped like Dokkan Fest TUR stuff like that, but it's not like, oh my god, buckle like October, November. This is where, if you're playing Dokkan every day and you want to take a break, like this is, the point of the year where it's good to take a break, kind of like, again, what I'll call like the off season or the slow season or something like that, right? So they don't just usually like, all right, it's the November Dokkan Fest celebration, which historically is always the worst celebration of the year, right? The Halloween one, like the Tech DBZ Bardock celebration, like that celebration is always ass. The AJL Trunks one, historically, it's always just terrible. So, they're not going to be like, all right, boom, new Red Zone, hardest fight in the game is dropping in this celebration. They don't really do that. The only, like, I think spot where we could maybe see, like, there's actually, like, really tough content or something like that would be if it was going to happen as part of the New Year's celebration. A lot of times we have gotten new Red Zones as part of the New Year's celebration. So, this Kalen Caulifla fight and this Broly fight right here, I do have expectations for these fights. Like, expectations that these are actually going to be challenging fights. So we'll see. And usually, remember, they do design some of these characters kind of like to match up well with the fights. So I would not be shocked if this Broly, supered for like 20 million at the end. And the point is they want you to dodge it with Gogeta, right? Or it's like Broly is doing a 20 million super at the end, but it's a melee super, and then like this guy can actually like count, like, it's a dodge canceling Broly with a 20 million damage super, and it's very difficult to tank. They want you to like counter it with like this guy or Omega or something like that, right? Because remember, if it's a melee super, that means this guy and Omega could both counter it, right? Because you think of this as a dodge that cannot be nullified is kind of the way you could look at it, right? So, like, that's a good way that they could kind of, you know, create a dodge canceling boss, but they have, like, a Ki Blast super or a melee super, so that it does, you know, most characters can't dodge it, but then some of the ones that specifically have one of these could kind of, like, counter it, right? So, I do have high expectations for this Broly, and we'll see. And Broly has been, I mean, obviously the hardest fight in the game before. I would say this, I do personally think the hardest fight in Dokkan history, to me, without a doubt, is the original Red Zone. This guy. This was the hardest, in my opinion, this is the hardest fight in Dokkan history right here. This guy. It took weeks to no item this guy. It was so, like, this right here, this shit, dodge cancel plus this AoE super, it was insurmountable for teams back then. You couldn't. Like, until AGL Super Saiyan 4 Goku got his EZA, like, I just was not able to deal with this, right? Right, like, you couldn't. Like, it's just too much. And it's like, you know, people will talk about the 7th anniversaries, oh, being some of the best characters of all time. But they were, you know, slaughterhouse victims in here to this Broly. Like, they could do nothing. Right? Remember, that was, back then, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's counter was just a dodge. It was not a nullification. So back then, he couldn't counter Broly either. So it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So we'll see, chat, if this fight is actually going to be that bad. So let me know what you guys think. We do have a couple of content stages. You know, here, let me pull this up. Yes, we got those, plus Proton, plus the Purunga Dragon Balls in a couple of days. And we'll see. I do think we're probably going to see EZAs coming at some point today, but I have been wrong before, so we'll see. So let me know what you guys think. I'll catch y'all next time.